For generations, black Americans have been told that the highest office in the land was off limits because of the color of their skin. Then on November 4th, 2008, that barrier shattered. Barack Hussein Obama, a first-term senator from Illinois, the son of a Kenyan father and a white mother from Kansas, was elected the 44th president of the United States. The images were seared into memory. A black family moving into the White House. Two little black girls running through the halls where enslaved people had once been held. The enslaved people built the White House, by the way. I'm just saying. Personally, I'll never forget the reaction in my middle school I attended. Literally everyone was rejoicing. It was also at that moment I decided that being the president could be my backup plan if all else fails. For Black America, it was a moment of profound pride, hope, and validation. Nearly 98% of African Americans voted for Obama, the highest share for any Democratic president candidate in modern history. But hope, as it turns out, is not the same as victory. And the Obama era was marked by a tension that would define the decade. The gap between the symbol and the substance, the dream and the reality. Obama's presidency had an undeniable psychological impact on Black Americans. Scholars have documented an Obama effect, a measurable increase in Black self-esteem, political engagement, and optimism about the future. Black children, when asked to draw a picture of a president, no longer draw white people, okay? But Obama was not a revolutionary. He was a politician who had to govern a country that was still deeply divided by race. And from the beginning, he was careful not to be seen as a quote-unquote black president. He was a president who happened to be black, not a president who governed primarily for black interests, because he did not at all whatsoever. This caution shaped his entire presidency. He rarely spoke directly about race. He avoided explicitly racial language, preferring to talk about all Americans and working families, you know the phrases. He famously said that Trayvon Martin, the 17-year-old shot by a neighborhood watch volunteer in 2012, could have been his son. But he did not campaign on criminal justice reform until his second term. The strategy was understandable. Obama knew that his presidency was fragile. He had been elected in the midst of a historic economic crisis, and any perception that he was too focused on black interests would have triggered a white backlash that could have undone his entire agenda. But that caution also meant that the first black president did not use his platform to directly challenge the structures of racial inequality. He did not call for reparations. He did not demand an end to mass incarceration. He did not put voting rights at the center of his agenda. The hope was real, but the change was incremental at best. While Obama was in the White House, the Supreme Court was quietly dismantling the legal architecture of the civil rights movement. On June 25, 2013, the court ruled 5-4 in Shelby County versus Holder that Section 4B of the Voting Rights Act, the formula used to determine which states had to get federal approval before changing their voting laws, was unconstitutional and outdated. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for the majority, arguing that the law was no longer needed because America had changed. And I think we all know how untrue that. I mean, how many, it's like 6, 7 black people got lynched this year. It's been 6 months. That's just the ones they found. I mean, like, come on, let's be fucking real. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The ruling gutted the pre-clearance provision that had been the crown jewel of the civil rights movement. Within hours, states that had previously been blocked from enacting discriminatory voting laws moved to do so. Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott announced that the state's voter ID law could immediately take effect. North Carolina passed a sweeping voter restriction law that a federal court later described as targeting African Americans with almost surgical precision. Across the South, states cut early voting days, closed polling locations, and purged voter rolls. Before Shelby, states with histories of discrimination had to prove their new laws weren't discriminatory. After Shelby, the burden shifted to voters to prove discrimination in court, a much harder and more expensive fight. It was the single most significant rollback of voting rights since 1965. And it happened on Barack Obama's watch. Obama denounced the ruling, but he could not stop it. The court was beyond his control, and the message to Black America was clear. The victories of the civil rights movement were not permanent. They could be undone. Even before Obama took office, a racist backlash was brewing. The birther movement, the false claim that Obama was not born in the United States, was led by a real estate developer and reality TV star named Donald Trump. Trump spent years amplifying the lie that Obama was a secret Kenyan Muslim who had forged his birth certificate. The conspiracy was absurd, but again, it fucking worked. I don't know his base, man. Like, unfortunately, maybe I do know some of his base. I don't want to know his base. I don't want to know anybody in his base at all. Oh my God. The conspiracy was absurd, but it worked. It tapped into a deep well of white resentment about a black man in the White House. By 2016, Trump had turned birtherism into a launching pad for a presidential campaign. His announcement speech featured racist attacks on Mexican immigrants, calling them rapists and criminals. He promised to ban Muslims from entering the country. He mocked the disabled reporter. He bragged about sexually assaulting women. And white voters loved it. Trump's campaign was not really a departure from American politics at all. Trump gave white voters permission to say the quiet part out loud, and they responded in droves. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes, but Trump won the Electoral College and the White House. For Black America, Trump's election was experienced as a negation of Obama's 8 years. The hope of a post-racial America had always been a fantasy. Not a fantasy was replaced by a nightmare. The Obama era taught Black America a painful lesson. Representation is not liberation. Having a Black president did not end police brutality. Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, 6 years into Obama's presidency. Eric Garner was killed in New York City that same year. Freddie Gray was killed in Baltimore in 2015. Philando Castile was killed in Minnesota in 2016. Having a Black president did not end mass incarceration. Obama oversaw record deportations more than any previous president. His administration continued the war on drugs, enforced harsh mandatory minimums, and expanded the prison system. Having a Black president did not close the wealth gap. White households continued to hold more than 80% of the nation's wealth. Black households held about 3%. The problem was not Obama. The problem was the structure. One Black man, no matter how brilliant or well-intentioned, could not overturn 400 years of systemic racism. But the hope he inspired was real, and that hope will be tested in ways that no one could have imagined. On January 20 of 2017, Barack Obama walked out of the White House for the last time. He handed the keys to a man who had spent years questioning his citizenship, his legitimacy, and his humanity. The transition was a repudiation. The country had elected a Black man twice, then it elected a white nationalist. Black America was entering a new phase of the struggle, a phase we're currently defining with defiance. Trump's presidency was not an aberration. It was the logical endpoint of a backlash that had been building for decades. From Nixon's Law and Order to Reagan's welfare queen to the birther movement, Trump gave white voters permission to say what they had always felt, that the country was being taken from them and that only he could take it back. For Black America, the Trump years were a relentless assault. Trump called African nations shithole countries. He defended white supremacists who marched in Charlottesville, saying there were very fine people on both sides. You remember that? He attacked Black athletes who protested police brutality, calling them sons of bitches who should be fired. But the real damage was structural, and it continues to this day. The Supreme Court's 2013 Shelby County decision had opened the floodgates. By 2016, dozens of states had passed restrictive voting laws, voter ID requirements, cuts to early voting, purges of voter rolls, all of it. Trump's victory, despite losing the popular vote, was made possible by these laws. Under Trump, the assault accelerated. The Department of Justice, which had once enforced voting rights, now defended voter suppression. Trump appointed conservative judges who would further gut the Voting Rights Act. In 2021, the Supreme Court upheld Arizona's restrictive voting laws in Brnovich versus DNC, making it even harder to challenge discriminatory election rules. In 2022, the court heard a case that threatened to give state legislatures unchecked power over federal elections. A case that could effectively end judicial review of voting laws. The message was clear, okay? The right to vote won through blood and struggle was no longer secure. And it's absolutely just not secure right now. It's just not secure. Trump's presidency also unleashed a coordinated attack on any effort to address systemic racism. In 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, many corporations and universities rushed to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Trump and his allies called these programs anti-white and divisive. In 2020, Trump issued an executive order banning divisive concepts from federal training programs. I mean, this guy is so stupid, it's ridiculous. The order was part of a broader war on critical race theory. After Trump left office, the fight continued at the state level. In 2021, Florida passed the Stop Woke Act, banning instruction that could make white students feel discomfort about historical racism. Texas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and other states followed. Books were banned, curricula were rewritten, teachers were harassed. The goal was to erase history, to not teach you about the shit that I'm talking about in this video, and make it impossible to teach why Black people have been systematically excluded, to prevent young people from understanding the truth about America. Trump's presidency did not end in 2021. His movement continued, growing more extreme. On January 6, 2021, a mob of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, seeking to overturn the election results. Among them were members of the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and other far-right militia groups. They brought nooses and zip ties. Oh my goodness. 5 people died, dozens were injured, the Capitol was evacuated, and yet, despite the violence, Trump was not convicted by the Senate. He remained the leader of the Republican Party. By 2024, Trump had consolidated his control over the party. He won the Republican nomination and in November 2024 defeated Joe Biden. He returned to the White House in January 2025. The 2025-26 Trump administration has been even more aggressive than the first. Trump has expanded executive power, purged the civil service, and targeted journalists and political opponents. He has threatened to deploy the military against protesters. He has called for the termination of parts of the Constitution. He has continued his assault on voting rights, DEI, and black political power. In April 2026, the Supreme Court, now with a solid conservative majority, issued a decision that nullified a 1982 federal statute prohibiting election systems with discriminatory effects against voters of color. The ruling, written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, held that only intentional discrimination, not discriminatory impact, is unconstitutional. But how in the world can you prove someone is doing something discriminatory if you can't reference the discriminatory impact of it? It's so fucking ridiculous. One Justice Department official called it a devastating blow to voting equality. Civil rights groups predicted that the ruling would lead to a wave of new voter suppression laws that would be virtually impossible to challenge. The message to Black America was unmistakable. The legal protections that had been fought for over generations were being stripped away. In 2026, Black America is tired. Tired of police brutality, tired of voter suppression, tired of the endless fight. The generation that marched with King is aging. The generation that grew up with Obama is disillusioned. And yet, the fight continued. Young activists are organizing around housing, healthcare, education, and climate justice. Hip-hop remains a powerful voice. Artists like Kendrick Lamar, Lupe Fiasco, and J. Cole continue to speak truth to power. They reach millions of young people who have never heard of SNCC or the SCLC. Black media, from podcasts to YouTube channels to streaming services, is thriving. Independent voices are building audiences that rival traditional networks. And despite the assault on voting rights, Black voters continue to show up. In 2024, Black voter turnout was high, despite the obstacles. Black women in particular remain the backbone of Democratic turnout efforts. The system is designed to contain Black people, but Black people keep building. Hey. Weak ass, you should have killed us, motherfucker. You should have killed us. I'm just saying. Did I struggle enough, get them dollars enough from the churches? The niggas think everybody